An introverted and failed high school student moves to another world with his classmates, and although he chooses to isolate himself to survive alone, he ends up on a journey to explore the new world with all the girls in his class, relying on his pathetic abilities. The story tells about a young man named Haruka, a failed high school student who used to live his life alone and isolated without friends, and used to sit in a lunch break alone reading a book, while the rest of his classmates were chatting together and enjoying their time. And the reason for Haruka's loneliness is that he does not want to do anything with his classmates because he prefers reading to anything else. In his mind, he criticized all his classmates and saw that they were divided into useless groups as if he was the hero destined to save the world. When he wanted to take a nap before recess, everyone was surprised by a bright light appearing out of nowhere below them in the form of a circle. Haruka realized that they would be transported to another world immediately because of his obsession with reading manga, and decided that he did not want to, and when he tried to leave the classroom, he found the door locked tightly, and gradually the magic circle began to grow until it swallowed everyone in the class. So Haruka tried to hide in the ceiling hole, but he ended up inside the magic circle. Haruka found himself in a white and featureless place, and he thought that this is the part where a rich king or a beautiful princess should appear to welcome him, and he kept turning around and did not find his classmates, but he spotted a lonely old man approaching him to tell him that everyone had already left. Haruka thought for a moment that he was some kind of otherworldly deity and stared at him like an idiot without listening to what he was saying, and thought that he had to choose his status and skill in the other world before he was transferred to another place, and suddenly a huge board appeared in front of him containing the skills needed to survive in the other world. Then he found that all the cheating skills had already been taken, leaving only worthless skills like himself. When he read the available skills, he didn't understand most of them because of his empty head, so he took out his anger on the old man and told him that he couldn't survive the starting village with such skills. He then blames him for summoning over 40 people at once without providing skills for all of them. The old man decides to give him all the remaining skills before he leaves, and the skill list disappears, and he ends up gaining a bunch of useless skills before moving on to a forest full of trees. Haruka thinks about what he's supposed to do in this world, mentally unprepared, unarmed, and unequipped, when he notices a bag lying off to the side, tightly tied, and when he opens it, he finds that it contains a bunch of clothes and items that are strange to him. Haruka realizes that it's basically leftover stuff, but decides to acquire it. After changing his clothes, he's curious about his current stats and realizes that he has to use a dice rolling skill among the skills he's acquired. He appears as MM and thinks for a moment that it has something to do with a shortcut to the concept of sadomasochism, but then he realized that he could add some points to his stats, so he put everything he got in the luck column because he was very confident in his luck, and when he checked his stats, he found that he had gained 2 more skills, including that he would be alone and couldn't form a squad under any circumstances. Haruka realized that he would spend his life in the other world as well, alone and lonely as always, and that he might not be able to get a girlfriend, and when he looked around he found none of his classmates, even though they were all summoned together, so he decided to start his journey in the new world by securing a new home for himself in the form of a house. Haruka wandered around the forest without a destination until he got tired, so he took a break for a while. After a while, he noticed that he had contact lenses in his gear, so he put them on, and then he saw the names of the items around him clearly. He realized that the lenses help him use the evaluation skill, so he continued to check things around him, enjoying his new skill. Then he found an edible mushroom on his way, so he collected it in his bag and decided to start collecting important items that will help him survive, such as food and medicine. Then he headed towards the lake and got some water, and then he noticed a strange cave near him. He felt curious to enter that cave and find out what was inside, and he was worried that a monster or a labyrinth master would attack him, but he was surprised when he saw that the cave was vast and completely empty of anything, so he decided to stay in it for some time and set fire to wood sticks with his magic to keep warm and keep monsters away from him. When he felt sleepy, he checked his condition before falling asleep, and after confirming that there were no monsters around him, he allowed himself to fall into a deep sleep and survived his first day in the other world alone. The next day, Haruka woke up and found that things were under control and there were no monsters nearby, but he realized that he was starving, so he made his own breakfast inside the cave and sat down to eat in silence. After that, he decided to make the cave his new home and that he must secure a permanent food source and take some safety measures, so he went out to get some herbs and mushrooms from the forest and thought that the issue still lies with the monsters and that he has nothing to defend himself in case he is attacked, and unfortunately he found 2 goblins near him looking for a food source. Haruka realizes that their stats are higher than expected and that he may not stand a chance against them, but he decides to deal with them since it's unavoidable. He grabs his wooden staff and tries to coat it with magic to enhance its power, then rushes towards them with confidence and manages to take down one of them. As the other goblins rushed towards him, he realized that their attacks were easy and their movements were predictable, and he managed to bring them down effortlessly. Then he continued his way into the forest until evening, and as he was washing up, He thought that he had survived his first battle and decided to settle for this much and return back to the cave, and he sat down to eat his dinner inside the cave. After he got the goblin stick and felt frustrated that he wouldn't be able to use it due to its heavy weight and short length. When he checked his items, he found that he had leveled up to level 2, which increased his stats. On the third day, Haruka started to get bored of eating the same type of food every day, and because he had no other choice, he had to eat mushrooms in the morning and decided that he had to work on his abilities, and found that all his skills had been upgraded to level 2 according to his level as a kanji. After that, he went out of the cave to practice using magic, and then he found some food on his way, and at first glance he thought he had found meat, but he found that mushrooms were still chasing him everywhere, so he felt angry and threw it away and started looking for meat. Then he decided not to think about food for now and devote himself to practicing magic. Haruka enveloped his body with a magical aura and discovered that it increased his movement speed as well as the strength of his strikes. When he found high-level goblin monsters, he didn't hesitate to crush and eliminate them until he ended up facing 3 of them at once. Haruka felt that he had to retreat now and hid in the grass. He decided to return to the cave to study more about magic in peace. After 2 days, he was able to defeat Goblin in one fell swoop. He added some improvements to his own house and finally felt that his life was finally starting to go well. Then he decided to devote himself to hunting meat by chasing rabbits and managed to catch one. He sensed a group of creatures around him and thought they were goblin monsters, but was surprised to see a group of his schoolmates walking aimlessly through the forest. Haruka felt frustrated that a group of delinquent boys appeared out of everyone at such a time and preferred to hide from them and not socialize with them. And on the other side, he found a group of spoiled girls heading towards him, and over time all his classmates appeared from different directions, and he did not favor any group among them until he found the classmates group. Then he thought that this world is cruel and it would be better to have some friends, and decided to go to talk to her directly, and suddenly he thought that living freely in isolation from humans without anyone interfering in his affairs is a blessing from God, as he succeeded in surviving this world for 5 days alone, and then he decided to continue his journey alone until he explores the other world completely. Haruka hid in the grass so that no one would notice him, but unfortunately for him, the leader of the group of delinquents heard the sound of his jump into the grass and sensed the presence of a being nearby and kept approaching him, while he blamed himself for acting without caution. Fortunately, it was the rabbit he had already caught that appeared to his teammates and made them think he was the cause of the commotion, so they quietly left without exposing him to them, though he was curious to follow them and eavesdrop on what they were talking about. He found his classmate Shiu telling his friends about the perverted things he has been thinking about since he came to this strange world. He felt frustrated that this group has not changed and is still bad, and he imagined that if the class representative Tuka discovered their malicious intentions and stopped them, it would make the situation better. Then he noticed that one of his classmates named Tanaka was with them and that they were using him as a distraction, and decided to go back to where they were meeting. Haruka then realized that the entire class was meeting at the source and preferred to continue to stay alone and avoid them for the time being. Based on his decision, he finds that his unit stats have risen to level 2 and realizes that any decision he makes will affect his stats, and he will have a hard time leveling up as he gains more skills. Haruka examined the names of the skills he had acquired and tried to explain or understand how they worked from the name, but as usual he didn't understand anything and thought it might be due to his stress, so he decided to eat some mushrooms to relieve his anxiety and wished he could at least get a fish. 2 days later, Haruka was awakened in the middle of the night by the noise of his classmates outside. He thought they were having fun as they usually do, but was surprised to see them surrounded by goblins. He thought that maybe he should help them and decided to use the evaluation skill before involving himself, but when he saw that his classmates' stats were much higher thanks to their cheating skills, he thought better of it. Then he remembered that it had always been like this, where all of his classmates had special things like sports, academic excellence, or social status, and he always wondered how a normal person like him ended up in the same class with them. Haruka was about to go back to sleep when he noticed that a group of goblins were about to attack his classmates from behind. He decided to intervene and take them down, revealing his presence to his classmates, who thanked him for saving them from that predicament. As they talked to him, he felt frustrated with himself because he had forgotten how to talk to humans due to spending so much time alone. Then he took them to his cave to stay until morning. When they entered, they were amazed that he lived in a luxurious cave that looked like a furnished house. When Haruka asked them how they spent their time since moving to this world, he was surprised that they spent their time running away from any danger they might encounter. Tatsuya then told him what they had been through since moving to this world. Most of them were in a state of panic, unable to accept the idea that they had moved to another world completely different from their own, while he and his friends from the nerd group were excited and spent time checking their stats. Then they found the group of perverts heading towards them, and Shiu ordered them to tell him everything they found out. While the situation was chaotic, Tuka addressed everyone and asked them to keep it together. As she was talking, they were shocked when a group of goblins appeared right behind her, and chaos broke out everywhere, and everyone was terrified, except for the group of nerds who decided to confront the goblins. The group of athletes had the confidence to back them up, and together they managed to get rid of all the monsters in their path. Tuka then suggested that they move to a safer place, and they ended up settling down near the river and built a camp. Tuka assigns everyone tasks according to what they are good at, and everyone starts to work together to survive in this world, but the group of spoiled girls object to the hard work and help the others and decide to go away, so the students split up into groups and decide to leave the camp and go wherever they want. Tuka ended up alone after the class disintegrated, leaving only the group of nerds who continued to work with her and fight monsters as they appeared to defend the camp. Over time, Tatsuya noticed that the group of perverts chose perverted skills to seduce girls and control others, and decided to level up in order to resist this type of ability. Tatsuya and his buddies decided to tell Tuka what they had found, and she thought that she should level up in order to gain the power to resist those skills as well. A few days later, the perverts succeeded in upgrading their skills to a higher level, and Tuka appeared in front of them, heading towards them. They thought it was the perfect opportunity to seduce her and do whatever they wanted, but they ended up on the ground after being kicked in the ass. The nerds then used the lockdown skill to seal their abilities, and when they were discovered, they ended up being kicked out of the camp. A few hours later, the perverts came back and decided to take revenge, burning down the camp and attacking all their teammates. After their base was destroyed after a lot of hard work, Wakana, the leader of the group of spoiled girls, blamed the nerds for choosing to fight and causing everything to fall apart, and everyone started berating them. Toka defended them, but in the end, the nerds chose to leave the camp and make their way to the other side, relying on each other and no outside help, until they ended up in Haruka's cave. Haruka felt sorry for them and realized that they had been through a lot, and decided to make up for it by preparing a big feast of mushrooms for them. They sat down to dinner together, and Haruka felt that spending time with one of them wasn't a bad idea. Tatsuya asks Haruka if he's sure he doesn't want to go with them since they're going to look for a city and start as adventurers, and although he would like to go with them, he restrains himself and refuses to accompany them so as not to get in the way because of his pathetic skills. Then he decided to go to check on Tuka's safety in the neighborhood. On his way, he encountered a kobold monster, and although he was bitten, he was able to overcome it and continue on his way. In the evening, he arrived at the campsite and found no one, so he used his enemy detection skill and could see footsteps, and when he followed them, he ended up in front of the spoiled girls. He felt confused and decided to run back to the cave, but he was surprised to find Wakana begging him to stop running. When he turned towards her, she asked him if he was part of the nerd group as she was looking for them. He was curious as to why she was looking for them, and she told him that she wanted to apologize after realizing that she and her companions had managed to stay alive all this time thanks to them, which made him go into a state of shock at their sudden exaggerated kindness. He then thought that he should make sure they wouldn't be a hindrance to the nerds if they met them, and started asking them questions about their ability to fight monsters or their knowledge of the way out of the forest, to which Wakana tearfully replied that they just wanted to apologize to them before the monsters ate them. Haruka found himself under a lot of pressure because of them, especially after Wakana asked him to teach them everything they needed to survive until they found the nerds, and when he checked his stats, he was shocked to find that the subjugation and control skill had just been activated, and he ended up escorting the spoiled girls as he imagined what they would do under the influence of his slave skill. Haruka feels he's in trouble and hopes that Tuka doesn't find him in this awkward situation. While he's busy thinking of a way to stop the subjugation skill, Tuka finds him and keeps calling his name while he completely ignores her, forcing her to yell at him, only to be surprised when he sees her. Haruka initially thought she was a ghost. When he saw her face clearly, he got confused and soon found a group of classmates following her and realized that they had formed a group of girls to survive together. Toka realized that something was wrong with Wakana and her classmates and kept staring at him, waiting for a satisfactory answer, but he had no idea what to say to explain the situation. When she realized that he had subdued them, she screamed at him, asking why he was doing it. He tried to convince her that it was an accident and that he didn't mean to tame them, and when he found everyone giving him cold stares, he decided to ignore it and go home. But Tuka stopped him and tried to talk to Wakana and the others until she regained consciousness. Haruka ended up sitting alone, as usual, while the girls discussed his ability. He thought about practicing expanding his house while waiting and tried to build a basement, but his attempt failed after he buried himself underground. Toka goes over to him and pulls him up, then tells him what Wakana told them and that he came to help everyone. When they all express their gratitude, he tells them that he wants to go home. Tuka is surprised that he has a house in this world and thought he belonged there, so he tells her that he built it in his spare time since he moved here. Toka asked how many people his house could hold, and they were amazed when he told them that his house could hold 240 people and that he had furniture, a bathroom, a toilet, and a kitchen. The girls asked Tuka to ask him to let them stay at his house for at least one night, and when she did, he was shocked that he would end up staying with all the girls from his class in one house, as any member of the pervert group would wish to be in his place. Tuka marveled that he knew the forest like the back of his hand, and when they arrived, the girls caught their breath because of the distance and were amazed at the size of his mansion-like house, which made him feel embarrassed that they were admiring his house, which was basically an abandoned cave. The girls were so happy to say goodbye to camp life and survive in the forest that as soon as he showed them where the bathroom was, they all rushed into the bathtub, and he ended up watching their clothes fly through the air in front of his eyes. Haruka realizes that jungle life has affected their behavior in some way and decides to sleep the night in a camp outside the cave because he can't stay with a herd of girls in one place. Tuka enters the tent to thank him for saving them. She told him that when the nerds left the camp, the rest of the students followed, making them worried about surviving in the forest alone, and expressed her helplessness to do anything for them, so he tried to encourage her and told her that she had succeeded in protecting them so far. She told him that she failed to do the things that nerds have been doing since they first set foot in this world. He told her that geniuses were practically raised for the day they would be transferred here and told her not to judge herself compared to them. She told him that having a house, food, and being able to defeat monsters were enough reasons to make him a genius over the nerd group. He realized that she was very smart, and after she left his tent, he fell asleep imagining what the girls looked like as they fell into a deep sleep on his bed. The next day, Haruka woke up to Chika's voice telling him it was time for breakfast. Then he found her moving closer to him until she was right on top of him, so he had to get up to get away from her. When he asked her about breakfast and she told him that she had made fish, he immediately got up and without meaning to, his head bumped into hers out of sheer excitement. Tuka and Chika exclaimed that he used to sit by the river and watch the fish while he ate mushrooms and failed to catch any fish because of their viscosity and speed of movement. He wondered if there was an easier way to catch them and found that a man could catch several fish at once thanks to her lightning ability, so he asked her to use her ability again. He then packaged her lightning and carried it to the river and finally caught his first fish. Haruka then gained the skill of using lightning magic by encapsulating it within his own magic, and when they marveled at his ability to gain new skills immediately after using it, he told them that he ended up getting the skills they had left, which are the worst skills for survival in this world. He then asked Tuka if she had any idea what she and the girls were going to do next, and she thought they should start looking for the city, and when he thought the girls were planning to go after the nerds, she told him that they just wanted to thank them and apologize. Then Tuka said that they should all level up before heading to the city, so he decided to help them do that. He met up with the girls to start the skills training, and when he realized that they were all at levels many times higher than him, he felt ashamed because there was nothing he could teach them. Suddenly, a kobold monster appeared out of the grass, so he thought it would be a good time to test their strength and asked them to beat the monsters. They started preparing to beat them up, and after getting cocky, they ended up unconscious after being beaten up by the monsters despite the difference in levels in their favor. Haruka felt they were in dire straits, while the girls justified their loss by not knowing that this type of monster is fast and biting, and he ended up sitting inside his tent with them after they refused to face the monsters again. When they came out of the tent, he was relieved, but Chika stayed inside to apologize for what she had done in the morning, saying she was testing him to make sure he wasn't like the others who had attacked them. She then expressed her gratitude to him for letting them stay at his house, giving them food and training them to fight, and told him that she would come wake him up tomorrow after she finished cooking the fish, and Haruka started calling her fish girl. The next day, he sat down to enjoy a fish and marveled that the girls were thinking of going to take revenge on the monsters that had defeated them yesterday. Before they left, Tuka stopped them and said that they had to train first before any battles could be fought. Tuka supervised the girls' training by going up against mid-level goblin monsters and then going up against kobolds again, but the result didn't change at all, and Haruka found that some of them were pretending to be sick to avoid facing the monsters. On the other hand, the spoiled girls were able to take down the monsters after combining their strength and feeling triumphant about getting their revenge. Haruka lay down under a tree and thought that he could go back to his introverted life now that the girls were able to take care of themselves. Tuka approaches him and tells him that it's time for them to head to the city with them, which means that his fate is more or less tied up with them. Tuka then helps the others pack up and head to the city, and Haruka thinks that no one can predict what will happen. A student was running away from something when he stumbled and crawled until he was sitting under a tree when a mysterious figure approached him and tightened its grip around his neck as the student begged for his life, but he soon ended up dead. Haruka and his companions begin their journey looking for a way out of the forest and into the city, thinking that he must do his best to protect the girls from the group of perverts who are chasing them. On their way, they come across a giant monster with a gun, so he orders them to step back and rushes towards it to stop it. The monster tried to hit him with a powerful blow, but he was surprised that he disappeared in a flash. Haruka hid behind a tree and began to analyze his movements and strength, and found that he was slower than he expected, and according to what the nerds told him, this type of monster monster can be defeated with magic. He checked his stats to see if he had enough magic and found that he had mastered the magic of 3 elements. While he was thinking, he was surprised when the monster split the tree he was hiding behind in half, and when it found him, it continued to try to attack him with successive blows. Haruka was able to dodge it and sneak up behind it to surprise it with a crushing blow that knocked it to the ground. When he turned to the girls, he found them staring at him curiously, so he decided to try using magic next time. When they encountered another monster, he used the fire magic he gained through temperature and attacked the monster with a fireball towards its face, and after he knocked it down, he was surprised that it died from his attack, even though he thought he was not that strong. And then Tuka told him that none of them could learn anything from his abilities because of his extreme strength. In the evening, the girls ate dinner together while Haruka set up traps in case their enemies sneaked up on them, then opened the map to check the route they would take tomorrow, and suddenly he sensed someone nearby and thought they were monsters before they approached him and found that they were the group of athletes. Haruka felt relieved that at least they weren't monsters, but when he called them idiots, they felt irritated and realized that he was still scum even in this world. He then asked them what brought them here and guessed that they were looking for girls, but they told him that they were looking for him. Haruka wondered if they were looking for him personally and thought they had suddenly changed their sexual orientation. They denied it, and Haruomi replied that they couldn't trust anyone anymore, especially after the group of perverts gained the skill of seducing and controlling others. Haruka thought that he had read in the list a skill similar to seduction and remembered that it was kidnapping, then tried to force them to reveal themselves if any of them had it, but it turned out that none of them had it and asked them why they didn't think that he might be the one who had it. Haruomi replied that they would have been relieved to know that he would choose to isolate himself from everyone and not use it. Haruka felt like he was making fun of being alone, and then Haruomi told him that they wanted to warn him about one of the students having the kidnapping skill and they didn't know who it was yet. Then they asked him to apologize to the girls on their behalf and decided to go to observe the situation in the forest, while Tuka was eavesdropping on them without him noticing her presence, and the next day he felt a pain in his stomach before continuing his journey with the girls. He tells her that they asked him to apologize for Haruomi and his companions yesterday. He then notices that she wants to say something but is confused and immediately realizes that it's about the kidnapping skill. Tuka slips up and admits that she's the one with the kidnapping skill after thinking he already knew about it and tells him that it was a secret between her and the nerd group. He tells her that he knew about it at first sight, but Haruomi and his friends are stupid enough not to notice it. She asked why he helped her even though he knew about her abilities and that he wasn't afraid of her since that skill was meant to steal other people's skills by eliminating them. He replied that he wasn't afraid of her, but was surprised that the nerds sealed the pervert's skills, but not hers. He realized that they didn't do it because they trusted her and told her that he trusted her too. When she started crying, he joked that she had been crying a lot lately, and she jokingly blamed him, causing him to flee before she could frame him, while Tuka felt grateful. As they continued on their way to the city, Haruka thought he'd sell some juice to the girls, and when Nagisa offered to pay in perverted ways because she was broke, he didn't mind giving her the juice in exchange for seeing her naked, but Tuka soon intervened, and he was forced to give them the juice for free. He thought they would have to camp for another night even though they had made good progress in terms of distance. When he noticed a riverbank nearby, he thought he'd try something and told them he would go exploring while they took a break. He then left and decided to try mixing several of his magical skills together at once. He managed to leap a great distance using magic and kept jumping between the trees like Tarzan until he reached a height where he could see the forest from a higher perspective. But soon he ended up falling again. Luckily, he was still alive. In the evening, Tuka is surprised to see him with many bruises and doesn't believe he was just exploring. He tells her what happened to him without details and she scolds him, but he shrugs it off and gives her some of the wild berries he collected. The next day, the team made more progress thanks to Haruka's scouting and traveled farther despite facing many difficulties, but their efforts were rewarded when they finally made it out of the forest. The girls were excited that they were so close to reaching the city at this rate, while Haruka thought he should be more vigilant now that they were out in the open. When he checked his stats, he was surprised to find that he had gained the skill of walking on air due to his exploration yesterday. When he tried it out, Tuka was shocked to see him walking on air effortlessly and told her that he wanted to check something upstairs. When he looked around from a high vantage point, he saw that everything was safe and that he had nothing to worry about, and he could see a group of people he recognized as the original inhabitants of this world because of their clothes, but they were in trouble because they were surrounded by monsters. He thought that the villagers being attacked by monsters might not be good people, and when the others found out, Tuka told him to rush over and help them, so he assumed that they were just bandits and refused to take the risk for them. She grabbed his hand and told him she'd fight if they turned out to be bad guys, but if they turned out to be good people, she'd do her best to help. He agreed to honor her request and told her they might not be able to get there in time. He then decided to try something new using both of his abilities and flew high, then formed a large windstorm and surrounded his body with it to fly as fast as he could. As he flew through the air, Tuka clung to his robe and told him that his wind magic had gotten to her and she couldn't avoid it. Due to their high speed, Haruka was unable to control it and ended up landing in the villagers and monsters with a force equivalent to an explosion, indirectly eliminating the monsters. After that, the adventurers thanked him for saving them, and one of them introduced himself as Ofter and that he was on a mission with his band, including his friend Gatek. Haruka felt relieved to be able to understand the language of the people of the world, and when he asked them why they were attacked, Ofter told him that the merchants had already been attacked, so the Adventurers Guild tasked them with exterminating all the monsters, and they agreed to the mission to make a lot of money, but they ended up trapped and on the verge of death. After that, the adventurers started packing their belongings while Haruka stood alone with nothing to keep him entertained until the others arrived, plus Tuka was still unconscious, so he approached Gatek and offered to take a portion of the mushrooms he had just in case. They gratefully accepted his offer and sat down to eat them greedily. By the time Tuka regained consciousness, they waited for some time until the rest of the girls arrived and were surprised to see Elf and the band of adventurers and ended up escorting the band to where Omoi City is located. The girls are overjoyed and start to run towards the gate, but Haruka suggests that they all race there. On the other side of the forest, the group of perverts continue to search for the class girls to teach them a lesson by using their skills and decide to find the nerds first in order to break the seal. Meanwhile, the group of athletes eavesdrop on them and learn what they are planning. All of the girls are impressed by what Omoi City looks like after they pass through the gate and see a lively city, while Haruka is frustrated by the atmosphere of the city and decides that he must separate from the girls after he has accomplished his mission and gotten them safely to Omoi City, which is not suitable for someone who loves solitude. In the meantime, Tuka was having a hard time controlling the girls and bringing them together and was irritated by Haruka's relaxed attitude, but he realized that she could lead them well as the class representative. Tuka then gathered the girls with a whistle and told them their next destination, which was to go to the Adventurers Guild to register, exchange the loot they got from taking out the monsters, and then find a good inn to stay in. Wakana felt irritated because she was treating it like a side job, so Haruka approached her and told her that she seemed to be very worried about them, and she blushed and denied it. After that, everyone headed to the Adventurers Guild, and as soon as they entered, they found people looking at them with looks mixed between sharpness and sarcasm. Then Haruka heard Ofter's voice telling him that the guild president wanted to meet him, so he told Tuka to register in the guild with the others until his return. When he went upstairs, he found a frighteningly muscular man with a crossbow mustache waiting for him upstairs. He spoke to him in a sharp tone at first before approaching him and shaking his hand to express his gratitude for saving Ofter's band. Haruka was relieved that they just wanted to thank him for what he had done. On his way to the store, he approached the clerk and told her that he wanted to sell the magical stones he had collected. She was shocked when he unpacked his bag full of stones and told him that she couldn't check that many, so he told her that he still had more, but she refused to take them and told him to wait until tomorrow for the guild to finish checking the stones. When he returned to the girls, Tuka told him that they had been officially registered as adventurers with the guild, and he felt happy for them that they were able to become self-reliant thanks to what they had gone through during their journey in the forest and the skills they'd already possessed. Then he was surprised that all the scary adventurers changed their behavior towards them and became more friendly and welcoming. Then he found Wakana pushing him towards the reception to register himself as an adventurer, so he entered confidently, excited that he would say goodbye to a life of unemployment forever after being registered. He ended up being rejected by the receptionist, who told him that he had to reach at least level 10 to be able to register himself in the guild. He felt a mixture of frustration and irritation at being level 9 and begged her to make an exception for him. She told him that he had to reach level 10 and be in a band, and if he preferred to work alone, he would be considered a novice at level 20 and would not be promoted until he reached level 30, so he found himself in trouble because the guild's requirements are difficult, especially since he would not be able to form a band due to his skills. And when Tuka saw the frustration on his face, she decided to take the lead and make sure the girls were safe until they reached the inn instead of him. Haruka is shocked to find that it's a love hotel, but the girls don't care much about it. After everyone gets their own room and goes to bed, Haruka stays awake and misses the woods. The next day, Tuka suggested that the girls go shopping after breakfast, while Haruka thought about returning to the forest again after he got his money from selling magic stones. When he went to get the money, the sales clerk told him that they only had that much for now and begged him to accept it without hurting them. He tells her that he didn't come to rob the guild. The guild president shows up and tells him that they haven't finished working on the stones he brought and don't have enough money to pay him, and suggests that the guild pay him in installments. Haruka didn't mind the idea, and when he took the money, he thought that if it was worth the same amount in the real world, he would be rich, and Tuka told everyone that it was time to go shopping and buy basic necessities. Gatek suggests Haruka a good place where he can spend money and he'll like it. Haruka immediately imagines a nightclub. Tuka realizes his perverted thinking, but he ignores her and walks out of the guild, still thinking about it. Haruka ended up visiting a secret weapons store and was told by Gatek that this store collects unique items from mazes and is suitable for special people like him. Haruka felt frustrated discovered that his specialness lies in being lonely and unemployed. Then he spent the day checking out the weapons in the store and was impressed by the quality of the weapons on display and that he couldn't say no to any of them. Then a necklace known as the Necklace of Seven caught his eye, so he asked the owner about it and told him that the necklace helps him combine 7 items together at once. While he was checking out the rest of the goods, Tuka appeared behind him and scolded him for shopping so late. He asks her to let him stay for a while to check out a certain plant, and without realizing it, he ends up fusing all the items he liked in the store together. The owner reprimands him and tells him that this is not allowed before buying the items as they are worth more than 10 million. Haruka is shocked to hear the figure as he only has 8 million at the moment. Gatek tries to help him and asks him to lower the price a little for him, while Tuka apologizes to him for causing all this trouble. The next day, Haruka ends up penniless after convincing the merchant yesterday to pay only 8 million and thinks about going out into the forest to get more stones, but unfortunately, strangers are not allowed to leave the city without an adventurer's permit. Haruka decides to return to the forest after realizing that he's not fit for city life. He puts on his jacket and cloak of invisibility and uses its ability to sneak out without the girls noticing him and manages to get out of the inn without attracting attention. After reaching the city wall, he thought about jumping high and escaping without the guards noticing him, but he ended up hanging over the wall and falling to the ground after some girls followed him outside and realized that he intended to run away. Haruka realized that they were the group of sports girls and had to return with them after his escape plan failed. The next day, the girls said goodbye to him after they were assigned their first mission as adventurers, and when he asked them to let him accompany them, Tuka refused because of his escape attempt yesterday, so he decided to take advantage of their absence and try to escape. He followed the same stealthy plan, and this time he succeeded in passing through the gate and getting out of the city, and he kept running excitedly until he noticed the remains of the ruins of buildings in the vicinity, so he realized that there was a village near the city in the past and did not care much about it. Although he saw many people getting into bad situations along the way, he decided to shrug it off and keep going back to the forest until he found a group of bandits attacking a carriage and trying to rob the owner. When he started to leave, he was surprised when one of them attacked him after they noticed his presence and told him that he should die after exposing them, so he used the fire magic in his wand to force them away from him and told them that he just wanted to go back to the forest. When they realized that he was a magician, they thought of attacking him at close range, but they couldn't touch him, so one of them approached him and asked him about his job, and he felt embarrassed before telling them that he was basically unemployed. They couldn't believe the fact that someone with such abilities didn't have a job, so he had to show them his stats, and when they saw that he was just a level 9 nobody, they rushed to attack him using their magical weapon skills. Haruka was able to dodge their attacks and realized that their bodies moved automatically once they launched powerful attacks at him, and he continued to dodge their attacks until they were completely exhausted and failed to damage him, and despite their skill with weapons, he saw them as weak. Then he found a girl approaching him after getting out of the carriage and expressing her gratitude. She told him that her name was Marielle and that she was from a noble family. Then she remembered that he had hesitated at first and almost ignored her and moved on, and she wondered if it was appropriate to thank him. Then she told him she was the daughter of the lord of the town and asked him to accompany her on her journey. He felt disappointed that his wish to be alone in the forest would not be realized so easily. When he accompanied her, she asked him where he had lived before he decided to leave. He refused to tell her the name of the city and told her that it was just a rundown village with expensive inns and not worth mentioning. He began to mention the negatives of the city as a justification for his departure, and when he guessed that the lord of this city might be a hopeless person and as bad as his city, Muriel felt embarrassed and told him that she was the miserable daughter of the hopeless lord of the city. Realizing that she was from Amoy and that this carriage was headed there, he asked her to stop the carriage so that he could go on his way, but she refused to leave him and told him that she would prove to him that their city was not shabby and would repay him for saving it. His escape ended up failing for the second day in a row. Meanwhile, the group of athletes confronts the perverts in the forest to prevent them from carrying out their plan to get the class girls, and before Shu can take the initiative to attack them, he is surprised to receive a fatal stat wound from behind. Everyone was shocked to see Shu fall dead in front of them, and when one of his comrades rushed towards his attacker, he ended up dead after the unknown assassin planted his weapon inside his body and then eliminated all the perverts amidst the shock of the athletes, who had no choice but to flee, but the assassin jumped right in front of them and told them that there was no way to run anywhere. On the other side, Haruka was begging Muriel to leave him alone, but unfortunately they had reached the city again, and Haruka found himself inside the governor's palace and found it so huge that he was confused, and when he waited outside, he thought about leaving unnoticed. He was surprised to hear Muriel's voice behind him, telling him angrily that she had asked him to wait while she changed her clothes and told him that she wanted to make sure he was well rewarded for saving her and asked him to wait again. He ended up sitting at the dinner table with her and began to eat like he hadn't eaten in a year. Then he was surprised that Muriel's reward was a large sum of money and an ID card that would allow him to come and go from the city whenever he wanted. While Muriel was talking to him, he was was busy trying the different types of food on the table, which made her feel frustrated and hopeless. The next day, Haruka returned to the girls and told them that the reason for his disappearance yesterday was that he had been invited to the governor's palace and denied trying to escape. Tuka asked him what he was invited to the palace for, but luckily for him, it was time for them to leave for a new mission before he could answer their questions. Tuka told him before she left that he was forbidden to leave the city while they were away. After they left, Haruka didn't give up and decided to try to escape for the third time, this time legally now that he had an ID card. Before leaving, he went to the secret weapons store to buy some items with the money he got from Muriel and ate some delicious food. Then he decided to leave a message for Tuka to minimize her anger at him and justified that he was going on a mission to check on the safety of fellow athletes. And when he headed towards the gate, he proudly showed the guard his ID, and as soon as he got out, he started celebrating his freedom and being alone again. After he reached the forest, he felt nostalgic about everything around him and that he was finally in the place where he belonged and was very excited to return to his old home in the cave. But he was surprised that an orc monster attacked him in this area, as they were supposed to be deep in the forest. When he checked his stats, he expected life in the forest to be easy with so many special items, and as he wandered through the forest, he was shocked to see a large spot of blood on the road. He ruled out that the blood belonged to one of the nerd groups since they are good at surviving on this world, and expected it to belong to a pervert or an athlete. When he used the enemy detection ability, he found many footprints on the ground. He followed the footsteps, thinking that the two groups may have clashed with each other. Then he was surprised to see the bodies of the athletes in front of him under a tree and realized that they had lost to the perverts. Then he noticed that Haruomi was still breathing and did not hesitate to use all the healing potions he had extracted from the mushrooms on them. Haruomi looked at him and didn't expect him to show up at such a time as he hadn't seen him for a long time. When he asked about the girls, Haruomi felt relieved and wanted to make sure that what they did helped the class survive. Afterward, his comrades regained consciousness, and when they told him that the group of perverts had died at the hands of an unknown assailant, he began to wonder if the group of nerds were safe or if they had been attacked by that assassin, and they told him that he was very strong and they didn't stand a chance against him collectively, and that he had stolen their weapons. Haruomi guessed that this person might be a math genius who had been planning to get rid of them all for a long time and suspected that he might be going after Tuka because she had a kidnapping skill, and Haruka was surprised that they had already noticed it. Haruka told him that he realized this when he noticed her asking him persistently about her whereabouts and that he must have gotten this information from somewhere before he lost track of her. Haruka thought that the Ripper expected Haruomi to ask for her help and use that to lure her to him. Haruomi predicted that the Ripper would follow their blood trail and reappear, so they decided to change their destination instead of going to Tuka's location. When he told him that he was confident that they could take him out if they worked together, Haruka thought he didn't need to get into trouble and chose to live in the forest in peace. Then the athletes were surprised by his decision to fight alone. They told him that they could fight with him, but he remained silent. They realized that he might have a plan and decided to let him fight alone. He told them to go to the city to apologize to Tuka for their stupidity. They had no choice but to rely on him and left on their way to the city, while Haruka decided to take care of the thug alone so that they wouldn't all die and there would be no one left to protect the girls, and he decided to use the time he had left to level up. On the other hand, the girls were looking around the city for Haruka, but they couldn't find a trace of him, but they are confident that he will return because he left a note for Tuka before he left, while Haruka was analyzing the information he got from the athletes about the unknown assassin and his skill with weapons, and thought that he needs to acquire a new skill in order to beat him. Then he noticed that the scent of blood attracted the goblin monsters and found them to be high level and thought it was a good opportunity to improve himself and started attacking them one by one when he was surprised by the appearance of a huge goblin in front of him. Before he thought about how to attack it, he found it rushing towards him with great speed while his defenses relaxed, so he dodged his attack, and the goblin did not stop trying to damage him, but he continued to avoid it with difficulty until he decided to use several of his abilities at the same time and combine them with his magic wand, and then he succeeded in getting rid of the goblin in one fell swoop. Before he could catch his breath, he was shocked by the appearance of a completely different level of goblin and found that it was a level 50 goblin, which means that it is impossible to beat him, so he thought to try to dodge and attack indirectly. Then he combined all his bad skills together to use them at the same time and bet everything on his next hit, and thought for a moment that he had managed to beat him, but found that he continued to get up without any harm. The goblin surprised him with a surprise attack that left him with a scratch on his face and continued to attack him non-stop until Haruka took advantage of a gap to inflict heavy damage, but the goblin quickly healed himself and then landed a thunderous blow that dealt him massive damage. Haruka felt he was in trouble, but at the same time he could not retreat and had to do what he could to protect the others, so he gathered his strength and engaged the goblin in direct combat, and by morning he had defeated him and raised his level to 11. After that, he returned to his cave house and found that he had gained new skills thanks to his level upgrade, and thought that he was ready to face the unknown Ripper and started thinking of a good plan to beat him. Then he went out into the forest to look for him, and when he found him, he realized that the Ripper was Tanaka, a weak student who was being bullied by the perverts. On the other hand, the girls were practicing their adventurous tasks, worried that Haruka hadn't returned 2 days after his departure, and were surprised to see the group of athletes in front of them in a pitiful state. Haruomi tells her that they are fine and that Haruka is currently fighting alone in the forest. Meanwhile, Tanaka is frustrated that he was found instead of Tuka. Haruka asked him if he had planned to assassinate Tuka in the first place, and he replied that he was the one who used them to break up the class and weaken them, and he was the one who got rid of the group of nerds when the opportunity arose. Before he left, he taunted Haruka and told him that he wouldn't waste his time with a loser like him, but Haruka stopped him with his stick and told him that he wouldn't let him go ahead. When Tanaka wondered how he reacted to it, Haruka told him that even introverts have people who want to protect them, and Tanaka was excited to get rid of a nobody like him effortlessly. Tanaka surrounded himself with a powerful magical aura and told him that he was in the White Room and saw that the remaining skills were just a bunch of garbage before he got them, and that he had no chance against him with such skills, then attacked him with a bunch of large rocks. Tuka wanted to go after Haruka to support him, but Haruomi stopped her and told her that he would be fine. While Haruka was having trouble moving after Tanaka used his modification skill on him. Impressed by his sudden strength, Tanaka continued to attack him, telling him that he wasn't as bad as he expected and wanted to know before he got himself killed why he doubted him, telling him that he felt something suspicious from the beginning when the perverts were bullying him. When asked how long he had been planning to take over Tuka's ability, he replied that he had started planning it since his abduction ability was taken away and was able to formulate a solid plan when he gained the modification skill. As he spoke, Haruka was surprised to find his foot being bound by roots from the ground. It turns out that Tanaka had trapped him in a distraction trap to finish him off with a final fiery attack, and was shocked by Haruka's ability to absorb his magic with his staff. After he stopped using his abilities, Tanaka used a sword to block his attack. It turns out that he planned to lure him in close and then summoned all the weapons he had stolen from his victims to tear him apart. Then he continued to rush in and attack him with various types of weapons without giving him time to defend himself, until he finally managed to hit him with an overwhelming attack and inflict great damage, then approached him and suggested that he not resist. Although Haruka realizes that it is difficult to beat an opponent like him because of his skills, he refuses to give up and thinks that he may have used the copying skill to be able to use several skills at once. When asked if he was after Tuka's kidnapping skill to copy it, Tanaka admires his cleverness in figuring out his plan and tells him that he intends to use it to kidnap Tuka. Then he told him that he intends to use it to steal all the other skills and become the most powerful in this world. Then he continued to attack Haruka with even more force than before, and he tried to counterattack him with a counterattack, but he easily dodged it. When he rushed towards him to finish him off with a final attack, he was shocked to see Haruka dodge him with surprising speed and tell him that he realized he could only use his skills 3 times and decided to use the Lufold to his advantage. Tanaka is angered by his inability to damage him, and when he throws another strike, Haruka easily blocks it. He realizes that Tanaka's weakness is his fear of using every opportunity to use his skills, and decides to continue dodging him until he is unable to attack him. Tanaka told him that he has a lot of skills that he doesn't know about and tried to rush at him, but Haruka jumped away and told him that he was used to his speed. Then Tanaka surprised him with a devastating blow, and then a series of blows towards him until he fell to the ground. Haruka decided to take his chance to settle the matter, and when he rushed at him, he was surprised that he could still use one of his abilities, while Tanaka did not accept the idea of being defeated by a loser and decided to use his trump card, a skill stronger than anything he had ever seen. Haruka was surprised to see him using high-speed movement because there is nothing special about this ability, and he managed to block all of his attacks thinking that this can't be his trump card, and before he realized it, Tanaka used the instant death skill on him and made it look like his soul was taken out of his body, and he ended up falling to the ground without moving. Tanaka felt victorious and burst out laughing because he had the upper hand in the end, even though he had lost all his attempts to use the skill again and thought it was time to go after the abduction skill that would give him everything he wanted. As he started to leave, he was shocked to hear Haruka's voice calling him and asking him to apologize. He asked him how he didn't die after using his skill against him, and he replied that it was because he had the ability to resist disease and deadly spells, as well as his good luck that he had already maxed out. Haruka was surprised that he had just fallen to the ground without being affected by the skill. He told him that it was just an act, but he didn't expect him to step on his head. Haruka got angry and told him that he had used the modification skill to control his movements like a puppet. Haruka said that he had spent his time practicing controlling himself while the spell was activated against him, so it was easy to fake his movements and convince him that he was in control, proving that his pathetic skills weren't so bad after all. Tanaka unconsciously attacked him to take out his anger on him, while Haruka easily blocked him and told him that there was no point in wasting his skills like that. Tanaka was shocked that all his calculations were wrong despite being called a mathematical genius. Haruka tells him that in their world, world, 1 + 1 = 2, but in this world, things are much more complicated, and he is naive to think that math will work in a fantasy world that relies on the use of magic. Tanaka felt frustrated because he spent his days in the real world bored because of his genius and had no difficulty in studying and saw everyone else as stupid compared to him until the day they moved to another world, which was the first time he had felt excited in a long time. After seeing the list of skills, he felt that he had found his calling and would be able to get rid of boredom if he used the skills he wanted correctly, and decided to carry out his plan to the letter, even if it meant eliminating all of his classmates and eventually becoming the most powerful and invincible. When he realized his current painful reality, he was furious that the one with the worst skills was superior to him and tried to get him again, but Haruka forced him to drop his weapon, and after he thought it was over, he was surprised by his ability to control his weapons remotely after planting his sword in his shoulder, then retrieved it again and started attacking him, feeling that victory was his ally. Haruka hits him hard with his staff and tells him that he may have calculated, but that's all he can do, and accuses him of being lazy after getting the cheating skills he needs and not putting in any effort while everyone else did everything they could to survive. Then he approached him and used his full strength to deliver the final blow, and as he left, he told him that he had no cheating skills but could use some tricks before Tanaka fell dead, while Haruka continued his way through the forest with his injury. And when he felt his strength failing and was about to die, he remembered all his teammates and wanted to apologize to them deeply before he fell for good. He was surprised to see that a group of nerds had come to help him and supported him to continue his way home and take care of him. When he asked them why they had come for him, Tatsuya replied that they had found their way to the city, and when they arrived, they found everyone worried that he was going to fight alone, so they decided not to leave him to die alone and went back to look for him. Afterward, they returned together to the rest of the city, and when the girls saw him, they gathered around him to welcome him back and found Hiromi and his buddies waiting for him, and Haruka felt that having some good friends like them was not a bad thing. On the other side, Wakana and her friends apologized to the nerds for kicking them out of the camp, and Haruka found that he had done his job well and put his class back together again. He tried to sneak back into the woods again, but Tuka caught him and surprisingly hugged him tightly, asking him why he was trying to leave again. She then expresses that she was worried about him all this time and that she was afraid that he was dead, but now she is relieved that he is back alive. Suddenly, her tone of voice changes and she tells him that he will receive a lot of scolding from all the girls, and he ends up being dragged inside. The next day, Haruka woke up after having a strange dream about a skeletal girl surrounded by a terrifying aura of darkness. He couldn't understand what it meant, and when he came out of his room, he found the nerds were about to leave. Then they told him that they were going to go to the labyrinth to search for a rare item that can change the impression of others and their thoughts towards its user. He said sarcastically that it is a tool suitable for gloomy people like them, and after their departure, he decided to return to enjoy his life alone in the cave, and there is no reason to be here anymore. But before he left the inn, he felt a terrifying aura behind him, and it turned out to be Tuka, who glared at him and told him that they needed to talk in private, so he begged her not to yell at him because he had suffered enough from the others yesterday. She grabs his clothes and pulls him towards her to start berating him for fighting a deadly battle alone. She tells him not to do it again, so he apologizes to calm things down. After she leaves, he realizes that she looks more intimidating than Tanaka. Then he thought that by going back to the cave, he would avoid her anger and live his life in peace. When he remembered what the nerds told him about the rare artifact, he imagined that if he got it and made everyone love him, no one would be angry. In the meantime, the ruler of the city was busy with his work. His daughter Marielle brought him coffee and asked him not to work too hard. He told her that their city was on the border and they were receiving fewer traders and more monsters, so he had to work harder. Then they were surprised when Knight entered the office to tell the governor that a horde of monsters was coming towards the city. On the other side, Haruka was on his way to the maze and was surprised to see a whole army of orc monsters led by their giant leader, so he decided to take the opportunity to warm up before going deeper into the maze. At that time, the guildmaster asked Tuka to take on the task of eliminating the monsters near the city limits, and Mariel rushed towards them to tell them that an army of orcs was on its way to invade the city. The adventurers began to prepare for the defense of the city while Tuka rushed to the inn to tell the others, and then noticed Haruka disappearing again. Meanwhile, Haruka was in the middle of battle against the orc army alone and was surprised that so many of them appeared at the same time. Haruka was able to finish them off effortlessly while the rest of them waited for the monster army to arrive at any moment and began to confront some of them. On the other side, Haruka got rid of all the monsters that got in his way and returned to search for the labyrinth again. When he arrived, he used his stealth skill to sneak in without the guards noticing him and started wandering around inside alone looking for the rare item. After some time, he found a treasure chest and was excited to open it and take what was inside, but he was soon disappointed to find that it contained junk. He continued to search all the boxes he found on his way, but to no avail, which made him go crazy until he gave up and decided to ask someone with comprehensive knowledge of this place. Then it occurred to him to ask the owner of the secret weapon shop and decided to return to the city. When night fell, everyone, led by the guild leader, was waiting for the orc army, but they noticed that they were late in appearing, which made Gaytek suspect that they had received false information. And when Haruka returned to the city, Tuka went to him, so he asked her why they set fire near the gate, and she told him that the city was in danger of being overrun by monsters after they attacked the neighboring villages. When she asked him where he had been since morning, he was confused and silent, which made the girls feel angry at him for deliberately worrying them. The adventurers asked him if he had encountered monsters on his way, and he told them that he had eliminated them all by himself, which shocked them, and he ended up getting beaten up by the girls for putting himself in danger as usual. Muriel thanked him as the governor's daughter for defending the city from the monsters. He also received praise from the guild president and warned him not to act rashly again, as they had seen so many monsters recently that they expected a war between the monster army and the humans in the near future. Haruka had to promise not to act rashly again like he did today. When he was in his room, he kept thinking that he was being watched by so many people that his dream of living an introverted life was gradually fading, and he thought that he had to find the rare tool as soon as possible. On the 27th day, he went to the owner of the gun shop, and when he saw him, he asked him to leave him alone and told him that he had nothing to sell him anyway, so he told him that he didn't come to buy, but to ask him about the rare tool that improves people's impression of him. The owner tells him that the item he's looking for is the pheromone ring, which is rumored to be somewhere in the maze, and that no one has ever been there before. Haruka realizes that the nerds were right, and when he asks where exactly it is, the store owner guesses that it's probably on the 50th floor. He then added that it is difficult to go down to the cave floors because there is an invincible boss for each floor, and advised him to stock up on healing potions if he intends to explore the entire maze, so he decided to go buy some at the market. While the group of nerds were watching him closely, they return to the girls at the inn and tell them that he's looking for the pheromone ring, causing them to sense that disaster is imminent if he finds the device. Tuka decides to stop him at all costs, and the others agree. While Haruka was enjoying his time wandering around alone, he was surprised when everyone came in at once without warning, and when he told them that today was not their training day, Tuka confronted him about his desire to explore the labyrinth in order to get the pheromone ring. He tried to make up a lie to deny it, telling her that he was looking for a ring that would allow him to communicate with animals, but none of them believed him, so he decided to flee into the maze, and everyone followed him inside, ignoring the guards' warnings. Haruka thinks that things will get worse if they find the ring before him, so he decides to go ahead of them to look for it. When Tuka warns him not to rush into the maze recklessly, he tells her that he has good luck, and before he can finish his sentence, he ends up falling into a trap that causes him to fall into the abyss. Tuka tries to save him and reaches out to him, but he fails to catch her and continues to fall for a while before he decides to use earth magic to lessen the force of his impact with the ground. When he manages to avoid death, he realizes that he has reached the last floor of the labyrinth. Then he noticed a strange path in front of him. Thinking that this is the floor where the maze's leader is, he thought of using his air walking skill to climb to the first floor again, but he ended up falling again and had no choice but to find another way out. When he checked his stats, he found that he had gained the spatial awareness skill as well as the trap detection skill, and when he used both of them to check his surroundings, he found no traps, but discovered that he had fallen to the 101st floor, which is lower than the lowest floor of the cave. He felt frustrated that he might be forced to face a boss stronger than the boss on the 100th floor. Then he started wandering through the paths until he found a suspicious door in front of him. When he opened it, he was surprised by an evil magic aura surrounding the place. Then he saw a hooded skeleton waiting for him, and when he used the evaluation skill to find out what it was, he was shocked that it was the Emperor of the Labyrinth on level 100. On the other side, the others were looking for him on all floors. When they reached the 47th floor, they found a teleportation portal. The girls thought that he could use it to go back up again, but Tatsuya thought that he might be following the traditional ascent as he didn't know that such portals existed. Hiromi tried to reassure them, confident that Haruka would find a way out somehow, while Tatsuya was worried that he would fall to the lowest level, where the Emperor of the Labyrinth is the most powerful monster in the labyrinth, and his presence alone helps boost the power of the rest of the monsters. Nagisa summoned her courage and told everyone that they should return the favor to Haruka and save him as he had saved them before, no matter how difficult things were, and then everyone gained confidence and decided to join hands to help their friend. On the other hand, Haruka is shocked to see that all of the Emperor's ratings are at the maximum level and most of his skills are unknown, and although he realizes that he has unparalleled power, he decides not to back down and confront him. At first, he tried to use his speed and surprise him from behind, and then he couldn't believe it when he saw him block his blow after he located his position and stood towards him, and when he realized that he had more speed than him, he tried to attack him directly using his artificial skills. But to no avail, he realized that in order to defeat him, he had to find a loophole to overcome his tremendous speed of movement. A few days later, Muriel enters her father's office and notices dark clouds swirling around the labyrinth. She tells him that she feels they are about to face something greater than the orc army that Haruka fought. He asks asks her to send a telegram to the Adventurers Guild to be ready for any emergency. Meanwhile, Haruka is still fighting the Labyrinth Emperor alone, trying to overcome his speed in various ways, but his attempts are not enough to even land a single blow against him. While using his full speed to move and maneuver the Emperor, he almost plunges his sword into his body, but luckily he manages to avoid it thanks to his newly acquired contact lenses and decides not to loosen his defenses and go on the offensive instead of going on the defensive. Hours later, Haruka marveled at the pleasure he felt as he struggled against the Emperor to stay alive. As time went on, he was unable to keep up with him and felt like he could lose consciousness at any moment. The Labyrinth Emperor begins to approach him quietly, and Haruka realizes that he is different from any monster he has ever fought before and that he has no intention of causing his death, or at least he thinks he can finish him off whenever he wants. When Haruka had the opportunity to surprise him from behind, he was surprised when the Emperor swung his sword right at his neck, yet he did not finish him as expected, so Haruka guessed that someone was controlling him and forcing him to fight. Haruka was surprised to see a bright light coming out of his staff and found that it was absorbing the darkness inside it, so he decided to get closer to him and continue fighting to absorb as much darkness as possible. And when he succeeded in absorbing the darkness completely, he found that the Emperor had stopped fighting completely. Haruka realized that he wanted to die because of his struggle with the darkness, so he didn't get rid of him to give him a chance to finish him off. When the Emperor put down his sword, the aura of darkness began to flow around him again. Haruka decides to put him out of his misery and finish him off in one fell swoop, but he feels something inside him that prevents him from finishing him off and ends up hugging him tightly. It turns out that behind this skeleton is a crying girl, and Haruka realizes that the Labyrinth Emperor has spent a lot of time here alone. Suddenly, he ends up acquiring the taming skill and brings the Emperor under his control. He tells him in confusion that he accidentally used a new skill on him and doesn't know how to undo it, but the good part is that he succeeded in freeing him from the darkness. When he asked if it made him angry, the Emperor shook his head no and then shook his hand. Haruka felt relieved that he understood his language, and when he found that there were no negative emotions coming from him, he decided to check his stats again and discovered that his name appeared after he tamed him, and he was shocked when he read the name and found that it was a girl named Angelica. He then decided to leave this place and try to return to the roof again, but as soon as he exited the room, he was shocked when the leader of the 100th floor appeared out of nowhere with the intention of confronting him, so he decided to get out of that confrontation by any means and continued to escape to the roof. He then made a hole in the ceiling and decided to use the air walking skill, but found that there were two level 99 mentors on the top floor and ended up being attacked by them, but he was surprised to find that they fell unconscious after colliding with the floor boss, who in turn died. Haruka was overjoyed that he had the luck of the highest level to save him from this situation. Then he sensed that Angelica wanted to say something, and when he noticed that the floor leader was dead, he realized that she wanted to get his armor, so he let her put it on. After Angelica put on the armor, she used her skill to make it fit her perfectly, and when he evaluated the armor, he saw that it was basically a cursed armor and was surprised to see Angelica heading towards the stairs to go up to the roof. On the other hand, the rest of the students reached the 50th floor, growing more and more anxious every time they couldn't find Haruka inside the floors, while Tuka continued searching, confident that they would at least find evidence of his presence on a certain floor, but ended up facing the giant one-eyed floor boss. Meanwhile, Muriel went to the guild master and told him that she was sure that something bad was going on inside the maze, and he told her that he hadn't gotten any reports from the guards at the entrance to the maze. Getek told him that he wasn't sure about relying on the maze guards to take care of things. The president thought they might need help, and Ofter decided to make sure they were prepared in case anything happened. When the boss asked them about the new group of adventurers, Getek expressed his surprise that everyone was absent from the guild today, while Muriel was absent-minded and hoped that all her fears were unfounded. Elsewhere, Haruka sensed the presence of a monster after they reached the 98th floor and found himself facing the floor boss, which is a lich at level 98 and can only be influenced by holy magic. He decided to open another hole in the ceiling to climb through, but before he could do anything, he was suddenly attacked by the boss, and when he was able to dodge it, he used his wand to absorb it as a dark monster and succeeded in killing it. Then he went up to the 97th floor and confronted the boss, which is basically a monstrous moth, using fire magic to deter its poison, and when the moths gathered around the fireball, he strengthened his magic and made the flame bigger to make sure it burned. Then he continued to climb the floors and defeat the bosses by various means until he reached the 95th floor and was shocked to find that the boss was level 100. When he tried to surprise him and attack him from behind, he was surprised that he was able to dodge his attack and found that he was doing unnatural movements for a human. When he found it difficult to keep up with him, he decided to rely on Angelica to take care of him. He noticed that the monster turned into a circular shape as soon as he saw her and was shocked by her decision to rush at him face to face without caring about his strength, and Angelica managed to split it in half with one blow. Haruka realized that she was still strong even after her low level and felt relieved to have her as his ally now. Meanwhile, the others were having a hard time time stopping the 50th floor boss, with the girls unable to withstand another attack from him after he broke all their barriers, while Haruomi and Tatsuya pondered what Haruka would do in that situation. When the boss attacked Tuka, she felt like she wouldn't last long against him, but the boys quickly helped her up and told her they had a plan. Haruomi then used his speed to distract him while the girls attacked him. Just as the plan is about to succeed, he forgets about the monster's other arm and ends up getting hit with a thunderous blow that causes overwhelming damage. However, he puts his trust in his friends because that was part of the plan, where he plays bait and Tatsuya takes him down, and they succeed in defeating the monster and knocking it down. The labyrinth guard was thinking about the adventurers who ventured into the labyrinth without heeding the warnings about the coming wave of monsters, and while he was worrying about them, he was surprised to see a swarm of rats running out of the labyrinth and was shocked to see monsters of a different kind appearing from the cracks in the ground. The guard rushed to the guild to tell the guild master what he had seen. The guild master realized it was time to prepare for the great battle against the monsters after they emerged from the maze, while Mariel realized that her worst fears had been realized. When the guild master searched for an old manuscript of the maze in his office, he found an old map explaining its concept. They found that the maze is a living place where monsters breed and descend to the lower floors, but at a certain point, the maze cannot accommodate a large number of them and they are forced out. According to the manuscript, the labyrinth dies when the labyrinth boss is defeated on the lowest floor and all the monsters inside disappear. After and Gatek were frustrated by the difficulty, while Mariel thought that only Haruka would be able to do it. Suddenly, they began to feel a violent shaking. The president realized that the monsters were approaching the city and ordered the civilians to evacuate to the shelters before they went into panic, and ordered Gatek to send their troops to the front gate to deter the monsters. On the other side, Haruka arrives at the 85th floor and is surprised to find the griffins inside, so he thinks to try to lure them to eat fish mixed with paralyzing poison and succeeds in trapping them and preventing them from flying. Meanwhile, the rest of the students reached the 54th floor and found a pack of wolves blocking their way, while the adventurers in the city could barely hold off the first wave of the monster stampede, but were worried about whether they could withstand the next wave. Remembering that the new adventurers are still inside the labyrinth, they realize that they may have to face the labyrinth's leader. The guild leader thinks that Haruka can somehow defeat him and wishes that they could somehow tell him that this is the only hope of stopping the waves of monsters. Everyone looked at Mariel, who was confused and refused to risk her life trying to enter the maze alone, so the guild president decided to go with Ofter, so she wouldn't get lost in the maze alone, and then she had the confidence to go and save the city. In the meantime, Haruka reached the 81st floor and found himself standing in front of a waterfall of unknown origin. He thought that these conditions are not suitable for him to fight freely. Then he was surprised when aquatic monsters in the form of fish jumped towards him and Angelica easily blocked them. Then he checked the strength of the monsters and found that they were at level 81 corresponding to the floor number. But he was worried that they would attack him all at once and end up like sushi. So he remembered that fish sellers in the real world freeze him when they catch him and thought of using ice magic to eliminate them and succeeded in weakening them and freezing them. As he began to jump between the rocks freely to get to the other side, he was shocked when the fish leader appeared out of nowhere behind him with the intention of attacking him, and before he could defend himself, the leader attacked him by drowning him in a high wave of water. Thinking he's got him, Haruka emerges from the depths after making a surfboard out of earth magic and manages to ride the waves before leaping high and landing on the boss's head, shattering it and finishing him off. Haruka begins to acclimatize to the maze and enjoy his time inside as he travels from floor to floor, collecting some treasures along the way, obtaining the Ring of Happiness on floor 79, the Blessing Bracelet on floor 77, and the Black Magic Gem after defeating the boss on floor 75. He then thought about whether he could sell the treasures and become wealthy or use them for himself, and decided to give them all to Angelica so she could have some happiness after ending up wearing cursed armor. Angelica hesitated to accept them for a while until he insisted that she take them, and then she felt happy as if she was getting jewelry for the first time in her life, and they continued on their way, discovering more secret rooms. On the other side, the students defeated the wolves, and when they sat down to catch their breath after a long battle, Ofter and Mariel arrived. When they found that the students were looking for Haruka after he fell to the bottom because of a trap, Mariel felt frustrated that she had bothered to come so that he could defeat the labyrinth master. Haruka, on the other hand, ended up in a predicament after discovering that the 74th floor is the fire floor and he has to cross through it to the other side and suffers from the high temperature while crossing. But the good side is that he knows that the floor is booby-trapped through his skill. Angelica suggested he take a break for a while when she noticed a spot free of fire. He thought of a way to boost his heat tolerance and then thought of using wind magic to release a breath of air, and soon felt relieved as he filled his lungs with more oxygen. The others heard his voice through the hole in the wall, and Tuka approached him to try to communicate with him. When he spoke to her, he realized that she might be talking to him through the hole he had fallen from and considered himself lucky that his voice had reached her. She asked him if he could climb the hole to reach them, and he told her that he tried to use his his climbing skills to no avail, and when he realized that she was on the 54th floor, he decided to run to reach her faster, and before he started to go, Tuka told him that the city was in trouble because of the monster scrambling out of the maze. Then After told him that he saw the second wave on the way to the labyrinth, and that the adventurers might not be able to survive after getting rid of them. He was surprised when Mariel told him that the only way to stop the attack on the city was to defeat the leader of the labyrinth, which would force him to fight Angelica again while she protected him. He tries to convince them that he's already defeated the boss. They wonder why there's a second wave of monsters when he beat the boss, and After tells him that he has to make sure the boss is dead so they can save everyone and stop the monsters. He knew he had to confront Angelica or risk the monsters overrunning the city, but he hesitated to do so since she had been trapped in the labyrinth for so long alone and controlled by the dark forces, and he didn't want to cause her any more suffering. He had to tell them that he didn't cause the leader's death yet and started thinking a way to save her and the city at the same time until he had a good idea and told them that he would be able to stop the monster stampede somehow, and that's when she decided to put her trust in him and asked Mariel to do the same. Meanwhile, Haruka vowed to save everyone and free Angelica. The adventurers were doing their best to stop the army of monsters on their way to the city, but they were outnumbered. However, the guildmaster ordered them to stop the monsters at all costs and do their duty as adventurers so that Mariel could receive help from the new adventurers. Haruka approached Angelica and told her that they had to hurry up and leave before the flames increased. Then they began to move quickly between floors so that he could catch up with the rest of his companions, and Haruka realized that he had many special items, although he failed to find the pheromone ring. After some time, Angelica asked him to take a break, and he told her that he knew he was pushing himself too hard, but he couldn't stop now, and they continued to climb the floors until they reached the forest floor, floor number 69, and while they were wandering around, an owl appeared in front of them with the ability to anesthetize them with its attacks. When she attacked them through her eyes, he told her that her ability would be useless against him. Before he could finish his sentence, he was surprised by his fall and realized that he was too exhausted to use his abilities and ended up being carried on Angelica's back. She told him to take a rest while she walked with him. Meanwhile, the students are in trouble when a huge sphinx-like monster with the head of a dog appears, and when it attacks them, Tuka dodges it, wondering why such a powerful monster would appear so close to Haruka. Haruomi tried to damage it in any way, but his attempts were unsuccessful due to his ability to recover, so Tatsuya used his abilities to try to bring it down, but to no avail. After realized that this monster is a maze puzzle and cannot be overcome by force, and then the monster launched a thunderous attack towards them, causing overwhelming damage to the entire floor. Meanwhile, Haruka and Angelica had reached the 59th floor and Haruka was feeling much better. Haruka felt a violent vibration from the monster's attack on the upper floors, while Tuka thought it was the strongest and most difficult thing they had encountered so far and felt hopeless to defeat it as it was impervious to physical and magical attacks. Just as the monster was about to finish her off with a final blow, Haruka appeared out of nowhere and saved her just in time, using his blended abilities to deactivate his skills, while Angelica took the opportunity to slice him in half with her sword. After making sure the monster was dead, everyone was happy to see that Haruka was okay. Tuka told him that everyone had been waiting for his return, and when she asked him about Angelica, he was confused to tell her the truth. Suddenly, the ground collapsed under them, but he managed to get back to the surface by jumping across the rocks. He then tells everyone that he's fine and that he's gained a lot of skills since he went down. Just as he starts to approach them, the floor collapses again and he almost falls, but this time Tuka manages to grab his hand and tells him that she will never leave him. Haruka realizes that he can't run away from her anymore, and after they help him climb back up, they are surprised to see a whole army of all kinds of monsters heading for the exit, and After realizes that it's the final wave of the stampede that could spell doom for the city. Haruka tells them his plan to stop it and points out that Angelica is the key to everything inside the labyrinth. They decide to take a shortcut to the surface through a teleportation portal, and Haruka is shocked that he didn't find one on his way up. On their way to the portal, Tuka wonders how he was able to defeat so many powerful monsters, and he tells her that even someone like him has a chance to succeed in this world with a little luck and wouldn't have been able to do it by any conventional means. Afterward, they returned to the city together, and when they found the third wave coming their way, they were stunned by their overwhelming numbers and soon began to lose faith in their powers, and it was only a matter of time before the entire city collapsed. Angelica stepped forward and plunged her sword into the ground to use a crushing force that passed through the monsters, forming a huge magical circle around them, and as the circle expanded, the monsters gradually disappeared until they vanished completely. Then everyone wondered if this was somehow Haruka's doing, so he approached Angelica and told them that she was the only one who had the power to eliminate her monsters, and they realized that all this time he had been accompanying the Emperor of the Labyrinth, and they felt dangerous towards her. He told them that she had saved him several times while trying to climb to the roof, and there was no danger in her presence, but some of his colleagues were still afraid of her because she is the strongest in the maze and all the monsters serve her, and Haruka said that she is indeed the strongest because she can overcome any monster that gets in her way despite being exposed to certain circumstances that reduced her level to the first level. When they realized that the situation was safe for the city, they felt victorious and started celebrating together, while Haruka felt happy that he was able to save the city and Angelica together, and normal life returned to the city after the civilians took to the streets again. The next day, Haruka decided to use the items he got from the maze and combine them together to prepare for an event, and when all the girls showed up, they were surprised by his display of gear like a mountain of rare treasures. Then he grabbed the megaphone and announced that all his friends were allowed to shop and buy what they needed, and that he would sell them at discounted prices. So all the students ended up competing to get the best equipment, and the boys couldn't keep up with the girls and decided to give up quickly. He decided to give them the gear he was keeping for himself so they wouldn't come up empty-handed. After he was satisfied that everyone was getting the best gear, he started thinking about Angelica, who is isolated from everyone because she spent a long time alone in the labyrinth. He thought about trying to strike up a conversation with her, but he's an introvert and doesn't know how to talk, and he's not sure if she's the social type, and he kept wondering if she would fit in with everyone else in the city. Haruka was enjoying his time collecting the money he got from selling equipment to his comrades until he was surprised by Tuka approaching him, so he quickly hid the money and found her thanking him for giving them the rare equipment he had collected. Then she was curious to ask him about Angelica, and he told her that she was just a skeleton they could rely on. She wondered if he had used the pheromone ring on her to make her an ally. He replied that he hadn't found the ring in the labyrinth, and she was shocked when he told her that he had accidentally tamed her through the subjugation skill. Tuka didn't believe that he had tamed the Labyrinth Emperor, and when she asked him why or how he kept quiet, she thought he was hiding something and pulled Angelica outside to tell her everything in private, and Haruka hoped that Angelica would get along with the others and do well. Angelica sat in front of all the girls who were eager to learn more about her, and all she could do was answer their questions in sign language and tell them that she was a 17-year-old girl like them, which made them excited about her companionship. Tuka then approached her and asked her to tell them more about her in detail, thinking that she was trapped in the darkness at the deepest level of the maze for a long time until Haruka saved her, and the fact that he freed her from her curse and didn't let her die makes her feel like she wants to help her get over whatever bad thing she's been through. After that, the girls took her to the bathroom to relax a bit, and Tuka wanted to help her take off the armor, and when she took off her socks, they were surprised that she had a normal leg since she was supposed to be a skeleton according to Haruka's description. Tuka was curious to see more of her body, and when Angelica took off all her clothes, they were shocked that she was a beautiful blonde girl and not just a skeleton. Meanwhile, Haruka was in his room thinking that although he failed to find the pheromone ring, he succeeded in raising his level and developing his skills more than he expected, and he also gained new skills. He then decided that he needed to become stronger so that he could fight on his own, as he would not have been able to stop the monster disaster without the help of his classmates and Angelica, and felt it was time to return to the forest and live alone as before. The next day, when Haruka came out of his room, Tuka was confused to see him as he still didn't know the truth about Angelica, while she still couldn't believe what she saw yesterday, and then found him telling her that he was going back to the forest to do some important things. Haruka thinks that Angelica seems to be getting along with the girls here, but it's not good to leave her in the city alone, and suggests that she accompany him to the forest. When she agrees, Tuka is shocked at the idea of them going to the forest alone. Despite her fear of being exposed in front of Haruka, she wondered why she was so worried about it, as if she was jealous, but she pretended otherwise and told him to be nice to her. When they reached the forest, Haruka felt nostalgic to see the sunlight through the trees. He then began to use his skills to reach his cave house and asked Angelica to keep up with him. As he moved quickly between areas, he was surprised by a fall from the top of a hill and used his skills to cushion the impact on his feet and found that his skills were working well. After that, he arrived at his favorite home and went to relax in his bathroom, feeling happy to be back where he belongs. When he heard Angelica enter the bathroom, he offered to join him as a skeleton and would not be attracted to her, but he was soon shocked when he saw a naked blonde girl standing in front of him. Haruka was horrified by the intruder, but didn't recognize her and kept looking around for Angelica until he found her blushing and pointing out to him that she was Angelica. So he finished his shower and took her in for a private conversation. He started asking her questions, feeling nervous because of her shyness, and when he asked her to tell him what happened to her before he met her, she started describing in sign language how she ended up becoming a skeleton in the maze. He realized that she had already died and turned into a skeletal labyrinth emperor, but when she put on the armor, he restored her body in order to activate his curse, which made her return to her original form. Then the blessing bracelet he gave her canceled the curse that kept her trapped inside the armor, and the rest of the rare tools gave her the life force she had lost long ago. She then told him that he was the reason she came back to life by giving up the items he had collected, and that she felt grateful to him. He told her that she was no longer a monster and could do whatever she wanted freely, even if she didn't want to stay with him. Angelica refused to leave and fell into his arms, and then he realized that she wanted to be with someone since she had lived alone for so long, so he patted her on the head and decided to let her stay with him for a while. Then he thought of a way way to make her smile and suggested that he tell her an interesting story. When she agreed, he was excited to tell her his story and kept talking until she fell asleep, deliberately telling her his story in the real world so she wouldn't feel like she was the only one suffering from loneliness. After a few days, Haruka had been practicing his leveling up with her help, and one day he wanted to test his progress by practicing with her. When they had a mock fight together, he thought he could beat her speed with his skill, but she was able to keep up with his speed and try to attack him with her sword. He found that his stats and strength had not improved, but he decided not to give up and put more effort into becoming stronger, but he ended up falling to the ground after Angelica delivered a painful blow to his head. He told her that he was able to master the mobility skill thanks to her, and vowed that one day he would become stronger than her. Then they went to catch a bunch of fish for lunch, and when they returned home, he started teaching her how to cook fish and encouraging her. After they ate dinner, Haruka felt lethargic because he had eaten more than his normal rate, and was surprised when Angelica pulled him into the room and asked him to sit on the bed. When she turned behind him and started massaging his body, he realized that she wanted to give him a massage and that this was her way of expressing her gratitude. As she massaged his body, Haruka felt relaxed and told her that she was good at it. Then he realized from her facial expression that she wanted to do more activities, so he thought they should sit outside for a while and look at the starry sky. When they sat on a couch outside, he asked her to come a little closer to him and found that she knew nothing but battles, and her face quickly turned red when he patted her head and thanked her for the time they spent together today, and she felt as if she wanted to speak to express what was inside her, but she couldn't, so he told her that he understood how much effort she was putting in to make progress. Then he thought it was time for her to take her first big step and suggested that they go back to the city tomorrow. The next day, they returned to the girls in the city, and when they saw them, Wakana felt that they were having a good time together lately, and then they realized that they were holding hands all the way, which made them feel embarrassed. The girls gather around her and start asking her about what she's been doing since she left with Haruka, while Tuka tells Tuka that he will rely on her from now on regarding Angelica, then is surprised by Haruomi grabbing his neck and telling him not to call himself an introvert again after he went on a date with Angelica while holding her hand. He tells Angelica to continue chatting with the others while he goes for a walk, and is surprised that she manages to speak for the first time. He turns to her and finds her blushing and thanking him for what he did for her before turning back to the girls. Haruka realized at that time that he had learned since coming to this world that everyone has their own issues, and in one way or another, everyone feels uncomfortable around people, but deep down they also feel lonely, which means that everyone is isolated in some way, but that doesn't mean they are alone, and that's why he decided to continue exploring this world on his own.